Sleepy Hollow. So Sleepy Hollow came out in 1999, was directed by Tim Burton, and is a very loose adaptation of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. So if you go into the story expecting The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, you're gonna walk out disappointed. And that's because while it does take some influence from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and even reference the Disney version a couple of times, it takes most of its inspiration from the Hammer style of horror movies that was popular in the 60s and 70s. And if you don't know what Hammer Horror is, it was a studio in London that remade a lot of the classic Universal monster movies, like Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy, you name it. And it seems like Tim Burton took a lot of the style and aesthetic and tropes of the Hammer horror movies and put them in Sleepy Hollow. And if you want to know more about how Tim Burton was influenced and inspired by Hammer horror movies, Doug Walker over on Channel Awesome did a fantastic editorial a few years ago explaining how Tim Burton used the Hammer formula and crafted this movie. I'll link that below. But the long and short of it is that this movie really does feel at home with the other Hammer horror movies, specifically the Christopher Lee Dracula movies. They took the most advantage of the more over-the-top blood and gore that Hammer became known for. But that being said, this is not an accurate adaptation of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow at all. They go a completely different route with the story, and it's kind of disappointing for me because I am a huge fan of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's one of my favorite Halloween stories out there. I'm also a huge fan of the Disney version narrated by Bing Crosby. I watch that every Halloween. So I am kind of disappointed that when Tim Burton got the helm of this big budget Hollywood adaptation of Sleepy Hollow, that he didn't go a more traditional route. For instance, Ichabod in the original was a pretty self-centered schoolmaster. He wasn't a great guy, but he wasn't a bad guy either. And that's one of the things I love about Washington Irving's version is that there's no real heroes in this story. Everyone's kind of crooked. But in this version, Ichabod is a kind-hearted police inspector who's played surprisingly well by Johnny Depp. I always thought Johnny Depp was a good choice to be Ichabod. I mean, he looks the part. But instead of being superstitious like it was in the original, in this one he is an atheist. He does not believe in anything spiritual, and he's devoted his entire life to scientific investigation. Also, one of the biggest mysteries in the original novel was who is the Headless Horseman? Was he a ghost? Was he Brom Bones, his romantic rival? Or was it somebody else entirely? And while this movie does have a whodunit murder mystery storyline, the whole mystery surrounding Brom Bones and his motives are dismissed pretty early on. In fact, aside from the whole Brom Bones mystery not really being there, the identity of the Headless Horseman is known right away. In this version, we know that ghosts are real and that the Headless Horseman is a ghost after revenge, but the mystery doesn't stop there. The mystery instead turns to who could be controlling the Headless Horseman. And that keeps the tension high and the mystery going for pretty much the entire runtime. So if you saw my Batman Returns review, you know that I slammed that movie for not being faithful to the source material. But even so, I wasn't so much disappointed that Tim Burton neglected the source material, as I was that he didn't craft a very interesting story to replace it. Like I said, the storyline of Batman Returns feels very much like a first draft. It doesn't really come together at the end, and it's very disjointed. With Sleepy Hollow, even though I am such a fan of the original story and would love to see a faithful adaptation on the big screen, I can kind of forgive the liberties that this one takes, even though they are just as drastic as the ones in Batman Returns, for the fact that Tim Burton really did try to do something uniquely different with this version of Sleepy Hollow. Like I said at the start of this review, he is definitely going for the Hammer horror aesthetic, and it shows in the sets, in the color grading, in the color of the blood, and the viscosity of it. Seriously, where have you seen this type of blood before outside of a Hammer horror movie? So in that way, this doesn't seem so much as Tim Burton just having a ball with his style, as he is to faithfully and accurately recreate a style that hasn't been in circulation since the 70s. But does that make it good? Well, it is a lot of fun. If you take it as a cheesy Hammer horror movie, that is. This movie doesn't try to be good or epic or impressive. It just wants to have fun with the offbeat humor and violence that Hammer was known for. And there is a lot of violence. So many heads get decapitated in this movie that I've lost count. There's just so many dead bodies without heads. It's kind of hilarious. And for the most part, the mystery of who's controlling the Headless Horseman and the investigation in uncovering the plot is intriguing, and the movie keeps you guessing about who's guilty with all the red herrings that get thrown at you. In fact, the mystery element in this is done a lot better than most murder mysteries in the movies. And that's because of the casting. This movie has an all-star cast of actors. You've of course got Johnny Depp Depp, and you got Christina Ricci as his love interest Katrina. But we've also got big name actors in supporting roles like Michael Gough, Christopher Lee, Ian McDiarmid, and you know that any one of them could have been the murderer. And just as a side note, Casper Van Dien as Brown Bones, having Rico from Starship Troopers as the town's Gaston figure is fantastic casting. But even though this movie is a lot of fun and I do recommend it at the end of the day, this movie definitely has some problems. First of all, without going into spoilers too much, I thought that the twist at the end of who actually did it was pretty weak. In fact, when the villain is revealed at the end of this movie, they give this long speech about how they did it and what their motivation is, and it ties everything up so neatly, and it's such a generic standard motivation that they really could have said anything in that speech and it would have been just as plausible. But on top of that, the twist also involves witches in this universe, which is something that definitely was not anywhere in the original Sleepy Hollow, but it also wasn't much of a thing in the Hammer movies. The Hammer movies usually depended on just the one monster and trying to find out new ways to kill it. But here the whole subplot of witches just feels kind of out of place and just not Sleepy Hollow-y or Hammer-y to me. It just, that was kind of weird. And really the only other negative I can say about this movie is that the film goes very deep into Ichabod's childhood and his relationship with his parents, and wouldn't you know it, once again, Tim Burton throws in another terrible father figure. And if you thought that the Cobblepots were messed up, this guy murders his wife because he suspects she's a witch. And these scenes feel so forced that it takes you out of the movie and just begs the question again, what kind of messed up childhood did Tim Burton have where he feels the need to repeatedly put these same messed up father figures in his movies? It really took me out of the movie and it didn't add up to much. And just like the twist at the end, the backstory to Ichabod could really have been anything, but instead Tim Burton went with the same old with a messed up father and a dysfunctional family unit. But at the end of the day, I do recommend this movie. It is a visually stunning film, and while the storyline does leave some to be desired, the sheer amount of fall and Halloween iconography is so nice to look at, and it is on full display in this movie. And with that, an even more insane Christopher Walken performance than he gave in Batman Returns, and that's never a bad thing. So if you're a fan of old Hammer horror movies, or just want to watch a spooky murder mystery draped in fall decor, I'd say give this one a watch. It's not one of Tim Burton's best, nor is it his worst. It's somewhere in the middle. And that about wraps up my thought on Sleepy Hollow. What did you think about this movie? Did you like the unique style and tone and storyline that they crafted for this version? Or would you have liked to see something a bit more accurate to the original? Feel free to give me your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And as always, I'm Colby. This is my Nerdy Talk, and next week I'm going to be tackling one of Tim Burton's silliest movies, Beetlejuice.